Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody.
Hillary Clinton wants to abolish it, believe me. She wants to abolish our Second Amendment.
I think they didn't deny it. I don't think anybody denied it.
Other presidents did not call. They'd write letters, and some presidents didn't do anything.
Many people have come out and said I'm right.
You really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Hello and welcome to Fallacious Trump, the podcast where usually we use the insane ramblings of a guy with almost two whole ears to explain logical fallacies. I'm your host, Jim.
And I'm your other host, Mark. And normally we say that a logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that results in bad or invalid arguments. And then we do the whole show. And then we get to a bit that says is not a logical fallacy.
Yeah.
But there's so much stuff has happened that the is not a logical fallacy has expanded to take up the entire podcast.
Yeah.
This time.
Yeah, it's filled all the space
emergency
that we would normally have to talk about a fallacy. Basically, someone took a shot at Trump. And so we were like, I mean, we should talk about that. That would be our is not a logical fallacy section. That's not our top story.
Yeah.
So yeah, shit's gone down. And if we thought we should talk about it. So our regular episode that we did have planned for this week will be now next week. And this is just an extra bonus episode that where, because we had to talk about this stuff and we had to talk about it quickly. And it's too much stuff. Too many
stuff. Yeah.
Consequential things happening. I mean, honestly, with the attempted assassination, the dropping of the dismissing of the Florida documents case by Eileen Cannon, and Joe stepping down today. This is, I think, the most consequential 8 days of US politics, or at least one of the most consequential. Yeah, I mean, maybe ever. There's a few like but yeah, that was more consequential in as much as it was an assassination that actually happened. It actually worked, and had significant fallout, obviously. But that was the only thing happened that week.
Fair enough.
Same with kind of January 6th. That was fucking crazy and change, and a lot of changed, but there weren't other things like if we were doing this. When we were doing this, we only had that to talk about. That was all that we needed to mention. Yeah. So So the big thing, the most important thing, I think, or at least the most recent thing, let's just call it that, is Joe Biden stepping down after being harangued by arseholes. And he had a bad, we talked about the debate last time. He had a bad debate, no question. It wasn't, I think, as bad as some people said it was. And there is no particular reason to believe that it would have made him lose, because the minor impact it had to the extent we care about polls and believe in them, it had very little effect on the polls. That could easily have bounced back, especially given the amount of time left between now and the election. In fact, the effect of the media talking about how bad it was significantly worse than the effect of the debate itself. Certainly, in one study among black voters, there was this is in battleground states specifically, among those who watched the debate, 20% were less likely to vote for Biden, and 70% were more likely to vote for him.
Wow!
Of those who didn't watch the debate but heard about it in the media, 58% were less likely to vote for him, and 42% more likely. So this is kind of the whole Nixon Kennedy radio versus TV thing.
Yeah.
If you watched it, it was like, old guy looked old. If you heard about it, it was like, oh fuck, democracy's bad. Trump is can't be as bad as an old guy. And
also it was the kind of, Trump was strong and forthright and coherent, well, cogent.
Definitely if you didn't watch it, you
if
couldn't
you did
come
watch,
away from that.
And if you get your news from the right wing media or just the media,
this is the problem. This is if it was just Fox, that's exactly what you'd expect. If it was Newsmax and OANN, that's what they are paid to say after the debate.
Yeah.
The problem was the mainstream media. It was CNN, it was MSNBC saying, like, making the question not how does Trump keep getting away with lying all the time, but can Biden possibly bounce back from such a disastrous debate performance? And that was the narrative for a week. And to the extent that they were constantly asking everyone that question, including prominent Democrats, and saying, some people are talking about it, because obviously they're talking about it because you're talking about it and you're asking people about it, and then you're saying, I've heard people have been saying things about this to me when I've asked them questions about it.
People have said,
and claiming that Obama and Pelosi and various people were talking about it in private, but that wouldn't talk about it in public, and it snowballed into a big thing, and everyone was like, what's going to help him make the decision? Will he step down? Will he do what's right? Yeah. When the polls weren't showing that there was any significant difference,
any impact. Yeah,
there were minor fluctuations, as there always are. They were pretty much within the error bars, and again, so long between now and the election itself, and but the decision essentially was kind of made for him by the media, I think. There was a few prominent Democrats did come out and actually say in public that they thought it was time for him to consider stepping down.
But didn't he at one point say, "Well, I will only go if you can show me the polls"? So in a way, he was saying it's all. I don't think bullshit.
He did. I think
it's all noise.
He said he'd only step down if he was diagnosed with a medical condition,
right?
Like an urgent medical condition. I mean, he got COVID, but that's not what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Basically, he was saying, if a doctor tells me I'm not able to do it,
compos mentis,
then I'll
not
step down.
Yeah.
But it was just he was harangued into it, and I mean, the ultimate thing is whether that was the right thing for him to do, to step down at this point, or wrong, based on the narrative around it.
Yeah.
The point now is that's what's happened, and probably Kamala Harris is going to be the candidate, and if she is, or whoever is, that's who we all have to get behind and vote for, because we absolutely need to get the election.
The parallel is, I guess, over here was Rishi Sunak calling the general election. The pressure on him had always been there from, the leader of the opposition, Starmer, who would just almost the day he took office started going, well, when you're going to call an election, you've been elected by, you have no mandate to govern, Mr. Sunak. You're only there. You didn't get in. You lost out to a lettuce, or you lost out to Liz Truss, and now you're in place and you haven't been elected. So he was haranguing him to go as soon as he arrived.
Yeah,
and then ultimately the press kind of got behind it, or they got behind Starmer sufficient to say, if there is an election, then we're probably going to start endorsing Labour. And Sunak he was always on a dodgy. It was the poison chalice had been handed to him, and he had to kind of carry that can of poison. And he had really no hope. So it was that what struck me about the Biden Biden Must Go campaign that actually was, in a way, he was a positive boon for the Labour campaign because he could just cock things up during the election campaign, but prior to that, he just cocked loads of stuff up. Kept saying, "Well, I'm not going because I don't need to because I've got a plan and you haven't." No. And in a way, Trump, I think, has possibly lost one of his assets.
Oh, absolutely.
Now he's no longer the old. He's
the old guy now.
He's now the old guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's now the old cognitively impaired narcissist.
What I would say, in terms of the kind of is this the right outcome? I mean, first of all, there's the fact that I endorsed Kamala Harris immediately, like in the first set of who should be the nominee way back in 2016. So
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Who's laughing now?
This is the right outcome. But the 2020 election that I'm talking about. I think that I think it's really bad that he was harangued into it. Mm-hmm. And I think the longer that went on, the harder it was to justify staying. Not because because his ability to do the job was in question, in my opinion. But because the constant questioning of it made that the story. Yeah, and at some point,
it detracted from all of the good stuff that he's been doing.
So at some point,
all of that,
the story becomes old guy who everyone thinks should step aside won't step aside. Yeah, and even though that there, so many people were saying we're riding with Biden, we're still in his corner, we're absolutely endorsing him, we'll definitely vote for him. Yeah, the narrative became, from the media and from some Democrats, that it's time for him to think about it. So,
and if he isn't going, he's being just as clingy on to power and narcissistic as Trump.
The more that narrative built, the more doing this became the right, in inverted commas, thing to do. To the point where I think now that it's happened, now that it's happened, I'm fine with where we are. There's issues with Kamala being the candidate. She's not the candidate yet. He's endorsed her, but there's questions over whether she will be the candidate. I think she's the only sensible choice.
Yes, because that was they can't just kind of do a coronation. It's got to be a bit like. Yeah, it doesn't matter how they do it; it will still look like a put-up job because people will still say, like we all said about Liz Truss and about Sunak, is that they didn't get voted by the membership of the party. They got voted by a select group of their peers. They didn't get to vote that. Nobody voted them in.
I mean, the thing is, they didn't. She didn't compete against him in the primary, essentially, successfully, obviously. But we're early on, and people will be given the vote, the opportunity to vote for her. So I think they're
gonna do like an open.
No, I think that
would thing at the conference.
I mean, that's a possibility, but that would be an incredible disaster if they did that. No party has ever won the election after an open primary at the conference.
There hasn't been one since the 50s.
It's been a long time. Yeah. So in the absence of doing a fake news this week, I on our Patreon and Facebook groups, I asked if anyone had any questions about this stuff that they might like answered, and so some of them. So obviously there were some things we were going to talk about anyway. Andrew Bimpson has said, I assume Harris will be the Democrat nominee, but are there any other candidates who stand a better chance of getting rid of Trump? So Kamala Harris is the presumed nominee because Biden and some others have endorsed her, but mainly because she's the only one that can take over the Biden-Harris campaign with all of the money and the delegates and so on, without really being open to genuine legal challenges or issues with the money. Like, for example, if Gavin Newsom competed against her and became wanted to be the candidate, none of the money that the Biden-Harris campaign raised could be spent by the Gavin Newsom campaign. It could go to the DNC or a PAC and be spent on advertising or something like that. But then they'd miss out on various kind of discounts that the candidates get with their fundraising and all of that stuff. So the only way that they can access the literally tens of millions of dollars that they have, I think it's $90 plus million they have on hand in the Biden-Harris campaign, is for Harris to be the VP, to be the candidate. She's also a great candidate in a variety of ways, a couple of which could also be drawbacks. So the fact that she's a woman of color,
she's a woman, there's the two right there.
There's a few misogynists and a few racists in the US who will be enough that they definitely won't vote for her. Some of them wouldn't have voted for Biden on the basis that she was his VP candidate. So, there's that. However, the fact that fact still that she's a woman of color, arguably as the top of the ticket instead of the VP, increases the likelihood or the hope that people of color and women will vote for her.
Yeah.
So there's probably a balance, and I don't know which way it falls, but it's definitely a different demographic to old white guys. Who, some of those were maybe going for Biden, and some of them were going for Trump. Getting another demographic is a good thing, and she can perhaps get the old white guy ticket with with her VP pick. Although that's not necessarily the best way to go.
That
she'll have to pick someone.
I think the other thing that who was I hearing? Somebody was saying, when the Democrats are bold. Oh, I think it was Rory Stewart was saying, when the Democrats are bold, then they win.
Yeah.
So, like Obama, that was a bold choice, and even Clinton.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Well, yeah, and I mean, she has some of the same issues as Clinton. The main one being she's a woman. But and that was part of why some people didn't vote for Clinton. But and she also is disliked by some people, probably not as much as Clinton was. But the fact that she is now a woman running directly against Trump, post Roe being overturned, is, I think, a more significant factor in her favour. And the other aspect is the fact that she used to be a prosecutor. And so her running against a convicted felon.
Yeah, exactly. She's going to be able to point that out very loudly. Their
debate is going to be interesting.
Yes.
And it definitely gives you an angle that you can go for, the prosecutor, not the perpetrator. That's the thing we want. We want, if you're in favour of law and order, this is the kind of person that you want.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because part of the, I nearly said the word charm of Keir Starmer there. part of his gravitas was that he was the director of public prosecutions, and so he has a very courtly manner about him, in that he will set people up by, and he did it several times with Johnson. I don't even bother with Liz Truss. and with Sunak, where he would set them up with, so you say this, you did this, but then you said this.
Yeah.
So he kind of catches them out, sets the trap, and they walk straight into it because of their hubris. And Trump's going to do exactly the same. He's going to snarl at her and say, "Oh yeah, but you were a prosecutor, and the Democrats are a bit, they don't care about law and order." And she would just say, "Well, yeah, but I brought in various when wasn't it Biden who brought in lots of sentences for first-time offenders and particularly with drug offences." And I think she was part of the deal that brought that in. So she was really strong on law and order when the Democrats
she
really
was
strong on law and order.
She was arguably too strong on some things when she was a prosecutor. That's the main thing that she was hammered on when in her initial campaign when she was running in 2020 was that she was kind of a little bit too quick to lock up people of colour for minor offences and for kind of drug possession, that kind of stuff. Yeah. She has since talked about how she might have done that differently or how she would do it differently going forward in when she's making those kinds of decisions or decisions that might impact that kind of thing. So yeah, I think there's things that people can question her about in her background. And there's certainly a lot of racist and misogynist attacks that people will make on her of claiming that she kind of slept her way into her jobs and things like that. That they were they've made for years.
Say that, isn't he? Yeah.
But yeah, she's a really good debater. She's a good speaker, and having a young, intelligent woman of color on as your candidate, I think ultimately is a good thing. It'd be a great thing if she wins. I think genuinely, I always said that she would be good. I am concerned about the level of racism and misogyny among the electorate that might cause difficulty for her, but I choose to be optimistic.
Because I don't think people voted for Hillary. People didn't vote for Hillary not just because she was a woman, but because she was a Clinton.
There were multiple reasons. Yeah.
But you know the Democrats successfully elected a black guy.
Yep.
To office twice.
Yep.
So you know it's doable. It is.
Yeah.
It's a bold.
I mean, there was a lot of enthusiasm, obviously, for Obama from early on. That there isn't for someone like Harris. I think it's something that can be built up. But equally, when Obama was running and had all that enthusiasm, he was doing it on his own. That wasn't based on on running against someone incredibly unpopular. So Kamala has that benefit too. Yeah. She has she's running against someone historically unpopular, and that was the reason that some people were voting for Biden. Some of them genuinely liked Joe Biden and thought he was great and had done a great job and would continue to do a great job. But there's definitely a significant proportion of Biden voters who were like, he's not Trump, he's sane.
Yeah.
And
well, it's like the French elections, with the kind of the left wing. I hesitate to use the word progressive, but the left wing in French politics all grouped together and did a kind of massive tactical voting thing in order to not let the right winger in.
Yeah.
And you kind of got to hope that you know it's got the same sort of feel as the Let's Vote Not Tory, and I was speaking to
everyone's got to come together.
Some people in France who are saying, you know, it would be nice at one election to vote for somebody without having to hold your nose.
Yeah.
and do so.
And I think for a lot of people, Kamala is a genuine candidate who you can get enthusiastic about. There are plenty of reasons to think she would be good. One-Eyed Nick on Patreon said, so apparently Obama hasn't endorsed Kamala. Do you think he will? And if not, who else would be a potential viable candidate at this point? So, yeah, Obama put out a statement about saying what a great president Joe has been and how this has been a difficult decision. He's done the patriotic thing. And then he said that I have extraordinary confidence that the leaders of our party will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges, which is, I think, a weird way to put it. Especially, I mean, the Clintons came out and endorsed Kamala pretty much straight away. Loads of people did, and Joe did, although not in his initial statement, but within an hour or so. I mean, this is brand new. This is literally like 4 hours before we sat down to record. This happened, so there's a lot is still emerging, and it may well be by the time this even hits your ears, Obama will have endorsed Kamala. But in the first few hours, at least, he hasn't. And I mean, from what I understand, insiders have known about this decision coming out for a few days now. It's seems like it was probably decided around Thursday, and has been announced tonight. So they probably knew in advance, and he had time to craft that message, and just didn't use it to endorse Kamala. And I don't know why, because she is.
Well, I wonder whether it's whether the fact that everybody, and the press, of course, now will say, "Oh no, well, he's done the right thing," and people aren't automatically endorsing Harris. But what Obama may well have been saying is, the party
we need to get behind whoever,
with a clear and transparent process to appoint someone. We don't just automatically go, "Oh, right, well, it's got to be Harris," because he'll be aware that however many people, 9 million, voted for Biden as the nominee. They backed him.
Yeah.
And they didn't automatically back her. So they would have backed the Biden-Harris campaign, but not necessarily with Harris as president. So maybe he's just worded it very carefully, because he does word things very carefully. Old Barack.
I mean, he
just to say, don't go hastily appointing somebody.
I find it hard to
doing the right thing.
Imagine that Joe didn't talk to him about this and let him know that he would be endorsing Kamala, which that and the whole VP / money thing makes her the absolute front runner and obvious choice. So it is an odd choice for Obama, I think, to not specifically immediately come out and endorse her, because I think that's the other thing about this time frame is we're still 108 days out from the election. We are it's less than a month till the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, when they will pick a candidate officially. I don't think there is time to hang around now. I think the logical thing to do, given that this decision has been made now and Joe has stepped down, the logical thing to do is for the Democratic Party to come together as a whole and say, well, obviously we're going with Kamala, and that's it. And we're moving forward now from this point on with that as our single goal, is to get her elected. So if you waste the next month fucking around and questioning whether she's the right person or whether there might be someone else, because
the advantage is that everybody knows who she is, because she's been VP for 4 years, nearly,
and she can also the incumbency thing is huge. So we've lost that because she's not the incumbent unless Biden steps down the Republicans want him to do. They want him. They're like saying, well, if you can't run, you can't be president, so you should give up.
Yeah.
But that would mean that Kamala becomes president and is the incumbent candidate, which would give her a massive boost. So, but
that might be the next conversation. Yeah.
But there might be calls for that, but I don't think so. I think he said he's stepping down so he can focus on being the best president he can be, basically, for the last few months,
6 months,
etc. Yeah. So,
but isn't there a but what if they did just go, right, it's going to be Kamala, that's it.
Yeah.
Would there be Democrats that would throw their hands up and say, well, that's not terribly democratic? No, the Republicans will say that's not terribly democratic.
The Republicans definitely will. There'll be challenges, but because it's pre the convention, the delegates that voted in the various primaries for Biden can essentially be transferred directly by Biden to Harris because she's part of the same ticket. They voted for the Biden-Harris ticket.
Yeah.
So she essentially gets their delegates. That's it. And so when the convention comes around, those delegates vote for her, and she becomes the candidate.
Yeah.
That's the obvious way it happens. If they were to come up with a process from which an outstanding nominee emerged, other than Harris, that isn't a foregone conclusion that those delegates can be transferred to another person.
Right.
There are open questions, legally speaking, as to whether someone else can take over in that position. I don't think they're super open. I think it is absolutely possible at this point, but it's unnecessary to complicate it to that extent. This is already more complicated than it's ever been. A sitting president has never stepped down this late in the game.
Time. Yeah.
So, so this is the point at which the sensible thing to do is to go, well, obviously this is our new step forward. Everyone now get behind Kamala. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that's what we'll see in the next few days and coming weeks is that being the assumption.
And then the thing becomes, okay, who do we point as VP?
Yeah.
Which is a much less fraught thing.
Yeah.
And actually somebody posted, well, it's going to be Harris. No, I've forgotten his name.
Buttigieg?
Yes.
Yeah. Barbara Kay in Facebook said, but Harris Buttigieg would be a dream package.
It would be a terrific package because he's going to catch up everything else, isn't he? He's going to, openly gay, white man, married with children.
Yeah.
That's going to scoop up every other progressive, surely.
There's benefits.
He's youthful and outspoken and
super clever. He's really, really smart. Pete Buttigieg. It's a possibility. I think there are other people with a better reason for going with them.
Right.
Buttigieg is from Ohio, I think. And I could be wrong. Don't think there's much chance of Harris Buttigieg taking Ohio as a state as a whole, but maybe that's not fair. But there are some kind of swing state people,
right?
Like some governors and some senators. Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, Andy Beshear in Kentucky. Kentucky could be in play. Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan. That would be interesting. There's a few possible female VP picks. So if you had Kamala Harris and Gretchen Whitmer, that'd be a fantastic ticket. And I think a lot of women would vote for an all female president vice president ticket. I think not just because they're women, but how great would that be to have that possibility?
Yeah, well,
in the White House.
Gretchen Whitmer, we talked about her a lot didn't she overthrow various things in the last election? there were all sorts of things going on, and she was going, "No, I'm having none of that."
Yeah, there were issues in Michigan, and I mean, she was
Yeah.
like threatened, and there was a plot to kidnap her and kill her that has been kind of prosecuted and then overturned and dismissed, and it's been crazy. But so that'll be interesting. Or there's other female VP options like Amy Klobuchar. Would be also great. There's also Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. I think would be an interesting choice, a good choice, because first of all, you've got Arizona as a swing state again, and Mark Kelly is a former astronaut who is married to Gabby Giffords, who was a former politician that was shot. Survived, but
that's right.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things in there of like super patriotic people who might otherwise vote Republican, but like this guy went to space for the US. You know, that's
right. Yeah.
That's interesting. There's some less exciting people like Michael Bennet, Senator of Colorado. And I think Gavin Newsom is definitely a name who's up there, but he's also California as well as Kamala Harris is California. So that kind of feels like you're wasting a chance to have another state in play that you've got some reason for people to vote for you in. Yeah. So yeah, I think John Ossoff has also been mentioned from Georgia.
That would be
good
one.
Yeah,
yes,
that would also be very interesting, and he's also very smart. I have heard Beto talked about, but I don't think Beto is great. I like him, but he hasn't been super successful in winning elections. Admittedly, in Texas. But but also against Ted Cruz. So there's winning under difficult circumstances against someone who is incredibly unpopular hasn't been his thing in the past. So although that I think could be a good ticket, I think it's probably not him. I haven't seen him his name bandied about much, but I have seen it mentioned.
No, I haven't heard from him for.
He didn't win, so he hasn't been involved in much.
He disappeared. He hasn't kind of campaigned or anything. We haven't. No. He's not vocally campaigned. It's not. He's not been on the airwaves beating the drum. Yeah.
So I think Buttigieg would be.
That's a good.
Good.
So there must be the whole Kamala Harris as the presidential nominee must be worrying the Trump camp, not simply because she's younger and smarter, but also that it does open up another slot. It's like bringing on a substitute, isn't it? In the last 10 minutes of play, or 2 minutes before full time, you bring on a substitute. That must be actually worrying them, and you can kind of tell because the rhetoric will start getting ramped up about how it's a woeful destruction of democracy and
So I think absolutely. I think there are reasons for him to be, and his camp to be upset about it. I think also, if there's one thing he's good at, it's stoking misogyny and racism. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, he's
with her as
tried.
His opponent.
He's been.
So with her as his opponent, I think that's what he will put his energy into.
Yeah.
And he's had a lot of success with that in the past. So, but I do think like she will fucking trounce him in a debate. And,
and it would be interesting then to see what the polling after, not the polling, because her poll numbers currently are much the same as, or sometimes worse than Joe's.
They're around the same as Joe's. So there's work to do, because it would, if over the next month her poll numbers were to go down, it would make it a difficult conference. If Biden had to step down because he was so historically unpopular he couldn't possibly beat Trump, and she's doing worse than he was at the point when he stepped down, that's going to make it, there's, people are going to ask questions.
But okay, it does make me think, though, that what is. So are the entire energies that Trump and Biden's camps are putting into, is that just to convince the undecided, or the floating voters, as they used to be called in the UK? Because if Trump's standing up at a rally, telling them about how terrible this black woman is, who was a prosecutor and put lots of people in jail, he's preaching to the converted. So there is.
I think that's
will it make?
I think that's one of the Democrats' strongest advantages, is the fact that they now, now that they don't have to argue against people saying, "Oh, your candidate is too old to run." They can focus on the areas, the votes, the groups of people who will win the election. Much the same as Labour did in the UK. They can focus on targeting those places and people and demographics who they need the votes from. They need to shift their votes, because there's a chunk of Democrats that are going to vote for them no matter what. Hopefully quite a big chunk that will vote blue no matter who. And some of those will now be possibly less enthusiastic because they liked Joe. Some of them will be more enthusiastic because they like Kamala. There's those undecideds who we just can't understand, who their vote is up for grabs. Trump is less, he wants to win, but he's less interested in appealing to people who don't already love him. His main thing is he wants to get on a stage, talk for 90 minutes about the same old shit, and have everyone chant his name,
laugh in the right places.
And he loves the fact that there are the same people come to his rallies. They travel around the country going to his rallies. You see them behind him in the stands. You see people dressed as walls and people, he thinks that's fucking great. And that isn't increasing his votes at all. That's talking to the same bunch of people.
Yes, exactly. Who would vote for him?
Yeah.
They would vote for JFK. Wasn't there a moment when there was a whole bunch of, that was a late QAnon thing where the return of JFK
Jr.
He's going to come back from the dead and save us all, and the people turned up to go see it. In
Dallas.
Okay,
because people are fucking nuts. But
so but they are the people that go around en masse. Smaller masses than Trump claims. And say, he is our God King Messiah. It's great. He's going to win, and he'll say we're going to win, and they all go and then nobody just puts their hand up and say, well, I'm not.
So hopefully the fact that he is less interested in the work that needs to be done to win the election, and more interested in just getting approbation, is a plus, because I think Kamala's team, who it will now be, can more effectively focus on that, because there's a lot less that they'll focus on misogyny and racism, the other side, because there's a lot less to attack her on. So it's going to be stuff that won't resonate as easily.
So in a way, it might kind of narrow down the focus of the Republicans, because Kamala can then will capture the post-Roe demographic and say, yeah, get us back in, we'll change it.
Yeah.
Well, that's she's going to appeal to a vast, hopefully. You see, the problem is we're coming from the point of view of
we already
well-rounded,
agree with them.
progressive, left wing.
Yeah, we have a little bit of confirmation bias in there.
Yeah.
So
going
I
on.
think that's fair.
Yeah. So we kind of think, oh yeah, well, but surely there will be more people that are convinced by this now. No, it does remind me of that whole tactical voting. What did they call it? Votes. What did they call it? Vote. I can't remember. There's a phrase in the general election here, but it reminds me of people rigging the music charts by going to the record shops that they knew were the ones that got polled by the charts and buying 50 copies of their own record from those, and then going to the next one. What was it called? Voter economy? No, voter...
That's how Donald Jr. got his book into the New York Times bestsellers list.
Exactly. Just went around and bought all the...
RNC bought enormous numbers of copies and gave them out free to people at the convention.
Yeah, exactly. In place of toilet paper. Yeah. Yes.
So
So we got I guess in reverse order.
Couple more questions on Facebook and Patreon. So Rebecca says, does anyone know what Harris's stance on the Israeli government's handling of the Hamas threat is? Is she more strongly against it? It's all-out war on Gaza. She has she's pretty much towed the same kind of line as Biden, although she's been a bit more vocal about how it's a humanitarian disaster and how innocent people in Palestine need aid and assistance. She was against Israel's attack on Rafah and said as much in public out loud, and has called on Israel to kind of do a immediate ceasefire. So she's been a little bit more vocal about it, but not much, and has largely gone along with the things that Biden has said. She has been specifically vocal about the fact that she is in favor of a two-state solution. She doesn't, right. She wants that to be the outcome, essentially. Yeah. But she says she believes it is achievable. So yeah, no real answer on how she would approach it, but I think that'll be one of the main things that she's questioned about very quickly. Yeah, I think as soon as people start asking her questions, because inevitably all of her opinions, her positions, her policies, will be the things that people start asking her about pretty quickly. Yeah. Yeah, that's now become
and it's
quite
interesting because that's the the parallels of that that we saw in our general election, with that several left-wing candidates got beaten by pro-Palestine candidates as a protest vote. So it might be good that she has been that vocal. She might.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't
pick up those.
Go as far as to say she's been out kind of openly pro-Palestine, but more recognising that there are a lot of innocent Palestinians who are being, having a lot of difficulty based on what's going on. Versus,
but of course, it'd be
must
interesting
support
to
Israel
see
at all costs,
because they would be important questions to ask her. Because where does the current policy from the American government come from? Is that Biden's opinion, or is that the party's stance? And if she becomes president, does she have to somewhat temper her stance in order to get elected as the nominee, or even to represent the Democrats? I mean, it would make you it makes you wonder where that policy comes from, because Starmer's policy is also the two-party state, But he, in the run up to the election, he was a little bit cagey about where he stands, and wasn't. He's I think he finally had to come out and say, yes, we want a ceasefire. But I think he was very cagey about that because he didn't want to alienate one bit of the electorate whilst alienating another bit of the electorate.
Yeah.
So he's got, he had a Ming vase to carry. Don't know that Kamala Harris has got such a Ming vase to carry.
I think there's probably votes to be won on either side. I think Biden lost a lot of young people through his continuation of supporting Israel. He did say more than some, even on the left, about needing to get aid to Palestinians and about Israel going too far and things like that. But his continued kind of military and financial support, essentially, of Israel, did lose him a lot of votes among young people, or in polls at least. And so I think there's definitely room to move in the right direction on that, and regain those people's support, especially with a younger candidate. If you're with someone who is more likely to be relatable to those younger voters anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
If she is
someone that they can identify with,
that.
someone who isn't their grandpa. Yeah.
So, I mean, Mike Thunder's question on Facebook is, "Are we fucked?" And I'm inherently optimistic, which hasn't always gone well, but but in the long run, it all comes out the way you anticipated. I mean,
I
don't know if I'd even go that far at the moment.
No,
things are pretty fucked. But I do feel like there are. I think, as I've said, that there's benefits and drawbacks to the situation that we're now in, and I think that I'm hoping that they weigh in the benefit direction. I think that there's definitely people who will vote for Kamala who wouldn't have voted for Biden.
Yes, exactly.
And
ultimately,
I think the other side is true as well.
And we're just talking about swing voters and undecideds, and they're a dangerous bunch, a volatile bunch, because they appear to be swayed by inconsequential things, like, oh well, it's a woman, I won't vote for a woman. Well, why? Well, but because you're a woman yourself. Oh no, the president's, that's a man's job. We've seen that meme do the rounds last time round. You go, really? What? and yet you're undecided. Yes, but I'm not going to vote for Hillary. Why? Because she's a woman. So there's hopefully the gains that Kamala makes in the inroads into the younger vote offset the losses that she'll inevitably accrue because of misogynism and racism and just ignorance, basically. So I don't. So in answer to his question, I don't know that I think we're slightly less fucked. It feels like now that they've fucked over Biden, them, that Biden's been fucked over. It's kind of, you've got to do it for the cause, do it for not Trump. That's the whole thing. I think
part of why
got fucked over by us on the radical left got fucked over by Starmer.
Yeah,
but he was doing it for the sake of the country, and you've kind of was he electable? Some of the whole
apparently.
thing that was. Well, he got elected, yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's the whole thing that was levelled against Corbyn, was that he was unelectable. That's only by virtue of the fact that if you don't vote for him, sure. But in a way, you think, okay, so yeah, it's not how we wanted it to be. It wasn't as completely fucked as the people who now want it to be different said it was. But maybe it's less fucked now.
Yeah, I think the thing is, we were dancing on the edge of fuckery anyway.
Exactly.
And
if fuckery makes razor blades, absolutely we were.
And
yes.
The difficult thing is part of the reason why Biden kept hanging on for so long is, in my opinion, that he believed that he was the best choice, the best chance to beat Trump. Having done it before, having the incumbency, having been voted as the candidate in the primaries, and all those things are true. And so what he didn't want to do, I think, is give up and then have the Democrats lose against Trump, and then that's because he gave up.
Right.
And there's a point on that teeter-totter of if you don't give up and you lose, like essentially it's a kind of a Ruth Bader Ginsburg thing.
Yeah.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg was fucking brilliant. Loved her. If she had retired a year earlier.
Exactly.
Well, not earlier.
Obama could have
she didn't
placed
retire.
somebody else.
She died.
Yeah.
But if she had, if she'd stepped down when she was already really old, then it could have made things different and better, arguably.
Yeah.
Obviously she didn't know what was going to happen. Biden doesn't know what's going to happen in the future. He was making the decision I think he thought was best at the time, and at some point that side tipped to it seemed like maybe if he stuck at it when everyone was saying no and he lost, that's the wrong thing to do, and maybe someone else has as good a chance, and maybe that can be better. So it's a fucking hard decision, and I don't.
Oh yeah, and you've got to have an immense amount of foresight, and to a certain extent, you've got to be truly. I've just had Keanu Reeves just popped into my head. You've got to be truly kind of humble in the face of all of that stuff.
Yeah,
and give people your sandwich and not worry about them bashing into your motorbike. That kind of stuff. You've got to. Because Biden's sitting there after 3 years of having done marvelous things. If our news feeds weren't quite so distorted by looking up Trump stuff, you'd actually get to see all the achievements that he'd done, and you get that constantly affirmed. There's all this amazing things. It's all the stuff about inflation and the borders and that. It's all bollocks because it's there are more people in employment than under Trump. The GDP has gone up under Trump, than it was under Trump, etc., etc. Yeah. Access to healthcare, access to jobs, access to education has all increased.
Yeah,
much more than it was under Trump. All of that.
CHIPS Act, PACT Act, so many things.
It's
but
you don't get to hear about. Well, I don't get to hear about it because I'm constantly looking at Trump stuff, so that doesn't turn up in my feed. So there's Biden, who's sitting after 3 years of very quickly doing all of this stuff, and people saying, "Well, you've got to go," and he's quite legitimately saying, "Well, here's my track record.
Yeah.
What's happening?" Well, and if it's anything like, if people in America's news feeds are anything like my news feeds, mainly because the news is hungry for this kind of stuff, so the Democrats are telling him that it's not making it across the footlights.
Yeah.
All of this stuff that you're doing we're up against the guy who's nothing but footlights.
Yeah.
You're failing in the popularity stakes, and we're back to blaming JFK for being beautiful and televisual, and ruining it for actual politicians who want to do actual policies rather than let's just get a man on the moon and return him safely by the end of the decade. Big aspirational stuff, but it's Starmer's kind of, as much as it aggrieves me to say, Starmer's hit the nail on the head when he say we need to return to politics for service rather than performative politics.
Yeah.
And that's what Biden is, in an environment where it's all about performative politics. He's not even in opposition. That's the thing. He's
just a guy. He's just a convicted felon.
He doesn't sit on the other side of the house. He's just a convicted felon with lots of pending cases. He's just some guy.
Yeah.
He's not. And so he's a bit like, up until our general election, he's a bit like Farage. He's railing around the edges going, the whole system's broken. I'm going to found another political party. Send me some money.
Yeah.
That's what Farage does. He's mini Trump. And Boris failed to do that. Liz Truss has failed even more miserably to do that. But Farage, that's his entire shtick, is to say the system is broken, vote me in and I will fix it. He hasn't. He hasn't fixed it. He say the two-party system's all right, and he'll get voted in, turns up, takes the money, all that stuff. So it's nothing but performative politics. And so Trump is not responsible for any policy. So he can rail against the swamp all he likes. But the people he's railing against the swamp to, nobody in the crowd. I had this kind of daydream the other day that I turn up to a Trump rally and then stick my hand up and go, so about draining the swamp, I see that all of the stuff you drained out of the swamp has ended up in your house.
Yeah.
You've taken it with you. It makes me think that you're part of the swamp. And then I was thinking, I wonder how long I'd last in a rally like that.
Everyone would go.
So, yeah. It's like the guy who turned up at the Tory party conference and handed Theresa May the kind of
P45.
unemployment,
Yeah.
the P45. Yeah, so good. And the people just going boo and trying to throw him out and being really confused.
Yeah. So speaking of Trump rallies,
yeah.
There was one.
Is that the last one in the? Are we doing chronologically backwards? Should we be doing JD events?
No. We're going. We'll go.
Right.
I think in
We'll
order
skip
of
back to large
relative
major
importance. I think probably.
Okay. Okay. Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm ranking them wrongly.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So 13th of July in Butler Township, Pennsylvania. Someone took a shot at Trump during a rally.
Yep.
Missed him. Got the top of his ear.
Yep.
There was just a. We haven't seen any medical records at all.
No.
And I'm not.
No.
I want to be very, very clear here. I am not saying it didn't happen. What I'm saying is we haven't seen a report from a doctor because he was barely grazed. That's what really happened. Because what we have seen is not a report from a doctor, but a letter from his former doctor, who is also coincidentally a former doctor, Ronnie Jackson.
Yeah. So is he a former doctor squared?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who said that Trump had let me get the actual words. It was a 2 centimeter wound at the top of his right ear. It said the wound is healing properly and swelling has resolved. How big
must his ear be for the wound to be 2 centimeters? That's quite a big.
That's the thing.
That's like an inch.
It is. It's almost an inch. It's and the thing is, it said the reporting was a 2 centimeter wide wound, but that's definitely not true.
Right.
Although, you know, width and length really are kind of depending on where you're standing, aren't they?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
if you're standing at the side of Trump's head, looking
Yeah.
at his ear,
Yeah.
like the length
That'd
of
be
the wound
width.
from where the wound started when the bullet hit
Yeah.
the top of his ear to the exiting slightly further back is
Yeah.
2 centimeters long. It's the top of his ear.
Right.
Ronnie Jackson
Yeah.
said it went down as far as the cartilaginous surface of the ear. That's the ear.
That's the ear.
The
'Cause
ear is all cartilage. Cartilage and skin is all there is.
cartilaginous surface.
Yeah.
So is that the
So it's
top
the,
of it?
the skin at
just
the
below
top
the
of his
skin?
ear. I've had the
I'm just
skin at the
gonna
top of
feel
my
the
ear
top of my
peel
ear.
off from a sunburn. Like that's the extent to which, and yeah, it fucking bleeds, and that's why you saw
Yeah.
the blood. And there's, you know, it wasn't
Yeah.
a huge amount of blood, although he says there was blood everywhere, but it was.
Yeah.
There's blood. The ear bleeds. My dad once caught his forehead on a kind of cabinet door as he was standing up and it was open.
Yeah.
Bled fucking all over the place because
Yeah, yeah.
the scalp is very full of blood vessels and so
Yeah.
are the ears.
And the skin is very thin.
Yeah, it was a very
Yeah, yeah.
minor injury,
Yeah.
but lots of blood.
Yeah.
And in the same
Yeah.
way, from the description of Ronnie Jackson, what happened is the bullet grazed the top of his ear. That's it. It kind of nicked him, and now he's saying he took a bullet for democracy, and he was wearing a fucking
Yeah.
stupid ear diaper at the
What is
Republican
that?
National Convention.
Yeah.
That was
You kind of
like 2 inches
Surely
wide, at least.
it makes you think what he wanted to do was show off the fact that he'd been shot in the ear.
Yeah.
Rather
He
than
it really
wear
drew
one of those
attention to it.
flesh-coloured band-aids. You know, you could 2 centimeters is huge, and you.
I mean, it's the top. It's about the width of your ear. I think if you like, it's the top. It just went along his ear a bit at the top.
Yeah, from front to back.
Yeah, but it didn't need any stitches. It didn't. The top of his ear swole a bit, and then it was fine.
It's just grazed.
Yeah.
It's a graze. It's a scrape.
So
yeah.
So I mean, it may sound like we're minimising this a little bit. And it was, it was a serious thing that happened. It's almost unheard of. You know, when I say almost unheard of, it's like every kind of fourth president gets shot or shot at, pretty much. It actually happens quite a lot, to be honest.
Who was the last one? Reagan?
Well, Reagan was shot in 1981 by John Hinckley.
Didn't Bush
Jr.
get shot
There were,
at?
I think Bush
Senior?
maybe shot. I'm not sure. Clinton was shot at in the, like, someone opened fire again on the White House. There was like automatic weapons fire in the White House.
Bloody hell. Yeah.
But like he was inside. It's fine. Yeah. So it doesn't happen often. But it's and it's a bad thing. And other people were injured. 2 people were seriously injured. 1 person was killed. And the part of the reason that we can treat it with a little bit of levity, first of all, is the fact that Trump barely sustained any kind of injury whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, he's saying taking a bullet is basically like saying I was slashed across the face when you cut yourself shaving.
Yeah.
It's
he would say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But also the Republicans' reaction to it has been so absurd that it deserves being taken the piss out of. Because first of all, a lot of the reaction was, well, this is the Democrats' fault. Understandably, they assumed that the shooter would be a Democrat, although that has turned out to be more complicated than they thought. There's still a lot we don't know. We are 8 days post the shooting, and it seems from the stuff we know at the moment that if anything, he leaned Republican, It was he apparently when he was 17 may have donated. He donated $15 to a kind of spammy progressive PAC.
Right.
That's the only
Well, so-
evidence of interest in the Democrats in any way.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
more
in
of a
the
kind
same way that didn't Trump donate to the Democrats?
I mean, Trump donated to Kamala Harris's campaign specifically. Yeah, that's quite entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and he used to donate to lots of people, but that was for political favors.
To grease his own palm.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this guy, it was on Biden's inauguration day. Some people have speculated that it could have been like a lost bet or something like that. But he doesn't necessarily seem to have had much of a friend group that might have engaged in that kind of behaviour. So it's hard to say.
Mhm.
But we do know that post that he registered as a Republican. He interviews with school friends have suggested that although he didn't talk a lot about politics when he did, he favoured conservative points of view. He was interested in computer games and guns. He was thrown out of his school's rifle club for being such a bad shot that he was dangerous. He was he basically, it seems from the FBI searching his kind of computers and phones and stuff like that, that there's not a lot of suggestion of motive yet. But that he searched the Democratic National Convention and Trump's rally and Christopher Wray and Merrick Garland and various other people, as well as a mass shooter. And again, speculation that he was maybe just trying. He wanted to do a shooting of a politician, and this rally was an hour drive from his home, so it was convenient.
Right.
That's a possibility. But yeah, we don't know if he specifically didn't like Trump or did like Trump but wanted to be famous or anything like that. Because like Mark David Chapman, the guy who shot Lennon, was a John Lennon fan, wasn't he? He wasn't. Yeah. He didn't have antipathy towards Lennon specifically. It was
I think actually, the hotel that he stayed in New York prior to the shooting, he signed himself in as John Lennon.
Yeah.
So I think to a certain extent there's that kind of identification with your victim, with your hero, sufficient to want to be them, to get rid of them, so you could become them, or so you could become famous. Yeah, I don't know that he wanted.
No, it's not clear
to do it to become famous. But
that was. But John Hinckley Jr., who shot Reagan in '81, did it because he wanted to be famous, so that he could impress Jodie Foster, because he was obsessed with Jodie Foster from having watched Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
He didn't give a shit about Reagan. It wasn't anything to do with Reagan. It was just for the fame. It was because in Taxi Driver, Travis Bickle plots against a political candidate. So it's what I'm saying is that there's lots of possible reasons and motives. We don't have any clue really what this guy was thinking or planning. When
certainly no
happened.
definite clue.
It's it's not. He doesn't have a manifesto. He doesn't have any significant social footprint, or any clear, outspoken political views that can be pointed to and saying, "Oh, well, this is what radicalized this person," or anything like that. He doesn't seem to have been an active member of Telegram and Signal groups and things like that. That it sometimes comes up with shooters. He appears to be a kid who was bullied and lonely, maybe. But
he's a quiet boy, kept himself to himself.
Yeah, so
nice, good to his mother. So is that for the lack of that, is that why the Republicans are going all out to say, "Oh, well, it's definitely the Democrats"?
Well, no, because they didn't wait for any of that at all.
Oh, right.
Not for a second. Yeah. They immediately started blaming Biden specifically and other Democrats for their violent rhetoric. Because as we know, Republicans would never incite violence,
incite violence
in any way
at all. No.
And
In the
so
middle of winter, say.
what we saw was in contrast to what happened when Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked, where Republicans almost universally took the piss out of it, claimed that the attacker was Paul Pelosi's gay lover, made memes of it, did kind of hammer gestures and laughed about it at rallies. Don Jr. did Instagram posts with his Paul Pelosi attacker Halloween costume. Fucking insane levels of disrespect for political someone who was attacked for their political position, even because it wasn't for his views. It was that the guy was going after Nancy and Paul happened to be there. So after that, they think that all of the stuff that Democrats say led to this, and all Democrats had to say about this after the fact, when Trump was barely grazed, was, this is terrible, it's awful, this should never happen, we completely denounce any of this, political violence is never okay. That was basically every Democrat's response. Yeah. And no one took the piss out of him, certainly until he started wearing the ear diaper. And it was an incredibly respectful and calm and thoughtful display of support for him. Yeah. Despite everything that happened on the other side. And I have to say that in terms of like the leap to saying there's no place for political violence is it. I understand the need to say it and say it quickly. I do think it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And I want to be very clear. I am against killing people. I'm against the death penalty. I don't think this was a good thing to happen. I think it's too strong to say there's never any room for political violence, because apart from anything else, I'm pro punching Nazis. I think when that guy punched Richard Spencer, that was just great.
Well deserved.
It was absolutely great.
Justifiable. Yeah.
So
it's fine. We're not going to do a Tenacious D and break up over punching Nazis. That's fine. Yeah.
And the thing is, there's a thing in 2000 Mules. I'm kind of fairly embedded in 2000 Mules at the moment, but one of their arguments, one of Dennis Prager's arguments, and the other Salem guys about how this is obviously, Democrats obviously cheated, was saying that if Democrats believe that Trump is such an existential threat, then it's incumbent upon them to cheat. They should cheat. So obviously, if they believe the things they say, they cheated. Because if they didn't, they would be being immoral. And as I said, I think that says a lot more about Dennis Prager than it does about Democrats. But in the same way, that's been some of the argument, is that they're Republicans saying that Democrats have been saying Trump is an existential threat. They've been saying he is America's Hitler, although that was J.D. Vance. They've been saying that he's he's all of these things. So therefore, they're saying you should shoot him, which is not the same thing. You can absolutely believe that he is a terrible thing. He's the worst possible leader. You can go as far as to believe it would be better if he was dead. Yeah, you can go that far, and still not think it's okay to shoot him.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing about Margaret Thatcher. She was awful, and people would turn up on rallies and go Thatcher, 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 out, out, out. But nobody sort of thought, okay, well, it would be good if she wasn't alive. It would be good if she wasn't Prime Minister, but we're not going to go out and shoot her.
No.
And if anybody did, and that was the thing in the 2019 election, Joe Cox was killed by a gunman who made a gun and went and shot her, and because he felt it was incumbent on him to do that as part of the political landscape. And all of the parties, and one of them was headed by Boris Johnson, so this is how serious it was, halted campaigning and just went, fucking hell, we can't do that. You might want to wish the fact that these people weren't alive in order to inflict these things on us, but that doesn't warrant going out and killing them. Yeah. And it's not... Yeah, that's no, I mean,
part of why politics exists is because it's a way to settle your differences without killing people. It's a way to argue about stuff that doesn't get violent. Yeah, that's the idea of politics.
Now, who said that? There was a philosopher that said politics is the continuation of war by other means, and I saw it written on the Berlin Wall. But actually, what you've just said there is, yes, you're right. It is a continuation of war by other means. Yeah. It's by other means, but not having war. It's not. Yeah. It's not. We're continuing to do war. No, it's the stuff that you do when you're having war, which is literally fighting for your own corner. But you're not having war. You're doing politics.
And the thing is, there's because it's a. Because saying political violence is never okay is simple and straightforward and uncomplicated, that's a great way to go immediately after something bad happens. Yeah. And I recognise that being okay with punching Nazis but not being okay with shooting Trump is more nuanced. And I recognise there's a line to draw, and I don't know exactly where to draw that line. Yeah.
But it's somewhere short of shooting
Trump. It's well short of shooting Trump. I think the Paul Pelosi thing is could have killed him. That's really bad. Yeah. The Rand Paul getting beaten up by his neighbour, that is a great thing. John Prescott had an egg thrown at him. Was it John Prescott? I think it was. That was brilliant. And then Farage getting milkshakes thrown at him. Those kinds of things. They're not permanent.
The fallout from the thing about John Prescott, it was an immediate discussion of the two sides of it, because he got egged, and then he punched the guy what egged him. Yeah, and you think, oh, that's interesting. So which one is? It's like the moral maze, isn't it? You have that. So both positions are there. Was it okay to egg him? Yeah, okay. Yeah, but was it okay to punch him? Yeah, because if you were egged, you'd want to punch the guy that egged you, but he's a politician. Should he have done that? Should he have been mindful that he's in a position of fact? Yes, but then the guy egged him. So it's, which came first, the punch or the egg? Yeah. So Farage getting milkshaked. Brilliant.
Yeah. And those things, they're not permanent. They're a reasonably minor inconvenience. What I'm saying is, I recognise there's a line to be drawn. I'm not claiming I'm the one to draw it, but I know but it's more complicated.
What ballpark it should be drawn.
But I think the fact is that two things can be true. You can hate someone and think that they are a terrible person and not be upset if bad things happen to them, and still not endorse someone specifically killing them,
doing bad things,
or doing really bad things to them.
That was the thing when Thatcher died. The Ding Dong the Witch is Dead from Wizard of Oz.
Oh, brilliant! That was
made it to the number one of the charts. Yeah, and everybody's going, yes, we're glad that she's dead. Nobody, up until the moment she died, had advocated what we should do is just kill her. Yeah. Because they stopped short of that, because she's not that important. Yeah. It's not that. And it's not doing that isn't a moral imperative that would overcome all your moral standpoints. So yes, it would be nice if she was dead. When she is dead, we'll celebrate it by buying the song, and dancing in the street.
And that's a rare person that invokes that much hatred.
Yeah.
It happens on both sides to some extent with different people, but it's not equal. There is a lot more vitriol and unashamed hatred and that kind of thing from the right. You see it a lot, and you see specific incitement to violence and death threats, and I mean, you only have to look at the people who like secretaries of state and volunteers even for election workers in various states who received horrific death threats and rape threats and all kinds of stuff.
It's state endorsed violence against them, isn't it?
So, as an example, Lou Dobbs died the other day. Don't care. And that's been the response of a lot of Democrats is, oh, what a shame. Moving on. There's, it's not a bad thing. It's, oh well. Also, Sheila Jackson Lee died just the other day, and she was a lovely woman who never did any harm to anyone. And Laura Loomer posted on, I'm not sure if this was Twitter or Truth Social, she said, even on her deathbed, this ghetto bitch couldn't keep President Trump's name out of her disgusting mouth. I'd say rest in peace, but we all know lying Democrats who've destroyed our country are going to hell. This is an old Democrat who died of pancreatic cancer, and this is Laura Loomer's response. She continues, Sheila Jackson Lee will be remembered as a destructive force in America and one of the most low IQ members of Congress in the history of our nation. Today she died. Instead of spending her final moments with her family, she was talking shit about Trump on X and spewing more lies. She won't be missed, but I'm sure she'll still be voting Democrat this November. Good riddance. So that's what you're dealing with on the right.
Yeah. They're just a hateful bunch, aren't they? And if that's not insightful language, it grants people permission. It's the same argument that was levelled against the Benny Hill show, in that it grants, whilst he would say, "Oh no, well, we're not doing anything sexist, and we're employing all these women to run around half naked in pursuit of me, a fat chubby man," but it changes the cultural norm about what is acceptable behaviour towards certain groups of people. And this was he was a TV comic, and he wielded that influence. And political leaders who are ostensibly in charge of the nation's culture are only too aware of how to influence the cultural norm. They will, by using all sorts of fallacies that we have discovered 153 times, try to excuse the fact that they're doing that. But that's what they do, and the Democrats take that very seriously and ensure that, when they go low, we go high, and ensure that they try to absorb the nuances of what's going on. The right don't give a shit about that. They know full well, they take it very seriously. They know what we've got to do is reduce things to a 3-word mantra,
slogan.
And then slag people off with it, and then at the same time step back and say, oh no, it's not. I just said we need to fight for democracy, or we need to walk down the road and make sure that the vote is counted properly, or stop the steal. And it's just, it is political violence. That is political violence. They're using their political power to excuse their use of violent language, and they know full well that they're wielding this power. It's like wielding a club with nails through the end, and they're embedding it in the heads of their opponents.
Yeah.
And in doing so, are changing the cultural norm so that it's acceptable to be able to do that. What happened with the assassination attempt is that it literally came back to bite him in a kind of Tyson-esque kind of way, came back to bite his ear off. And the real thing that nobody was talking about is, oh yeah, fucking hell, gun control.
Yeah.
We ought to, maybe it's about gun control. No, it's all about the Democrats. Yeah, but there's political violence and there's protest, but you've got guns.
Yeah. And then there's disaffected kids with access to guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are told that it's perfectly acceptable to do this kind of thing. To wield a gun in a public event.
One of the other very disappointing things that happened afterwards was the amount of conspiracy theories on both sides. It almost immediately, the right started saying this is either, Biden, endorsed, or this is the CIA or something like that, or the deep state, which I don't know if they think Biden is in control of, or that this is what was the other one that they said? This is a false. Well, there was people on the left who said this was a false flag. This was Trump setting it up, kind of to get a bump in the polls. And because all the focus had been on Biden or something for a bit, and so he thought this was important to do, based on nothing, based on as with most conspiracies, minor anomalies, little things that people looked at and went, oh, that's a bit weird, and then they thought, well, that obviously proves this, there were mistakes made, bad planning, bad execution of things by the Secret Service. Certainly, that happens. It was, more is coming out over time about that, and questions will continue to be asked. Probably people will lose their jobs, and there'll be hearings about it. James Comer's in charge of one of them, so that'll go swimmingly, I'm sure. Yeah. But there was never any reason to believe, and certainly no reason to jump to the conclusion of this is not what it looks like. This is not what it seems.
Yeah.
There was every reason to believe that the person who shot at Trump was a person shooting at Trump and trying to kill Trump.
Well, yeah.
We still don't know.
To the extent that he got shot back at.
Yeah. We still don't know why. We may never know why. We don't 100% know he was shooting at Trump. Maybe he was shooting at someone else in the crowd. Seems unlikely though. Yeah, there's the point is it's just jumping to conclusions when you have no information, or even based on the information that is coming out in the media. In the first kind of day of something as huge as this happening, so many of the reports that you see in the media, and certainly on social media, and from people who say, oh, I heard this, or, I spoke to someone who said this, a good chunk of that's going to be bullshit. And you can't rely on it or extrapolate from it. You can't go with that and go, well, that means this must be true, or it's crazy. Yeah. And the right thing to do is shut the fuck up and wait for
facts.
More information.
Yeah. Because otherwise, all it is, if some of the conspiracy theories made me think that QAnon was back, or that Q was posting again, because they were
you should have heard Alex Jones. He went fucking nuts.
They were just but they're reruns of these people's personal gripes, hatreds, just disaffection, internal bullies. It's all that stuff going on. They'd say, oh, well, that's obviously this and it's obviously that. It's just another way into the usual.
Yeah. It's all the usual.
Beefs.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the Republicans have blamed DEI already.
Right.
Right. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because one, maybe two of the Secret Service agents was a woman. The head of the Secret Service was a woman.
Right.
So clearly they can't be competent. They were only hired because they're women over much more qualified men, because obviously the most qualified candidates would have been men. So that's clearly that's just you're endangering your protectorate's life by making bad hiring choices.
Doing bloody inclusion stuff. Yeah.
Oh, it's just bullshit. So so that was a pretty fucking momentous thing that happened.
Yeah.
Which
8 days prior to
which
Biden.
Isn't actually still being talked about much. It's not really much in the news. Even before tonight's revelation from Joe, it's kind of died down quite a lot. There's still a few people saying, well, why haven't we heard from doctors yet? I'd like to see a doctor's report, which I'm sure is only being not released because it shows that there was nothing to do. Doctors were like, looked at here, cleaned up here, left.
Cleaned up here. Nothing that in any way warrants a whole Kotex on the side of your head.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely ridiculous. And then I saw at the RNC, I want to call it, acceptance of the nomination, but it was a rally.
Oh, people, 100%.
People with them stuck to their ears with fight, fight, fight written on them. It's
so the RNC was, it was billed as unity after this happened, because it happened, 5 days after?
Like the right was divided.
Yeah. So
it's divided to the number of one. Yeah. The guy on the shed roof. Yeah.
So, in response to this happening, they, like Trump, supposedly, to the extent he has a hand in writing anything, rewrote his speech. Rick Scott supposedly rewrote his speech to give it a more unifying edge, but then the wrong speech, according to him, got loaded onto the teleprompter. So he just said that shit. Matt Gaetz was surprised to hear. Well, he looked surprised because of his bad Botox. He looked surprised at basically everything that happened all 4 days, just continually. I think someone said he's a white tiger and a life partner away from a Vegas residency. There was
either that, or if they remake Max Headroom, I think he'd be in with a shout. Yeah.
So there was, it was a weird 4 days. I mean, the RNC is always pretty weird. But Unity didn't last.
Turned up.
He was there. He went to support Trump. I don't think he made it onto the stage, but he went there to support his good friend Trump.
He did leave. He did miss his first constituency meeting in Clacton. He did attend the opening ceremony or the pomp and circumstance of the King's speech, and then left. The King's speech is debated for about 4 days.
Yeah,
because the King's speech contains all of the upcoming
new government's
proposals
plans
that the government's going to put in. 49 new bills, so it takes a long time to discuss. Farage did all the pomp and circumstance, the free sandwiches, and the chance to be on television, and then got a flight.
Yeah.
So he's not one for, got a protocol and a procedure and things like that. He just fucked off because no more limelight. Got to get over there and turn up and he was saying crazy stuff like it's the fault of the media. It's the fault of the
he blamed
media
Joe Brand, who's a British. I don't
comedian.
know. I don't know why. but it was something to do with.
Wow.
I can't even remember. I did read what she said, but it didn't seem like it was anything that could possibly have had any impact.
It is. It is the oddest stuff that he
Yeah.
manages to look at it in such a way. He was convinced that politics were going down the drain because Brexit wasn't being delivered the way that it was promised, so people were disappointed.
Yeah. Oh, that must be it. Yeah.
What? Yeah. What? Yeah.
Explains it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
So
but no, he
was saying,
jetted
it's
off
all
to
down
get
the
a
media.
picture of him with his thumbs up next to Trump.
Yeah.
But I don't think he made it onto the stage. But a few people who did get on the stage were several members of Trump's family. His Don Jr.'s daughter, I think, was one of the people who gave a speech. Eric gave a speech, which got actual praise from Trump during his extremely long speech. It was a little bit backhanded because he said how great it was, and it really sounded like, and from Eric too. You know, it was like, you wouldn't expect him to have been able to
string sentences
stand up
together
and talk
Yeah.
for several minutes. So, wow, well done, Eric. So, and a couple of his golf employees, like his golf pro at one of his golf courses, did a talk about how great he is at golf. And
of course.
Yeah.
I think his granddaughter mentioned, he rings me up at school and asks me about how my golf game is going.
Yeah.
and he tells me about his, and and the kind of being a teenager, and I know that he's lying.
Yeah. Hulk Hogan did a talk.
Failed to tear his shirt off.
Yeah, that was a bit embarrassing.
He couldn't get the last bit done up because he's obviously using a high quality.
He's got to be 75 or so, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I mean, gee, the level of celebrities they get is just astounding.
Yeah.
It is the most fucking washed up, already bad people, already awful people. Like the one I think I'm most disappointed with is Scott Baio, because I used to like Scott Baio when he was in Happy Days and Charles in Charge, and in fact Bob Loblaw in Arrested Development. So he's like even recently been entertaining on screen, but so I'm disappointed that he's all the way Republican. But the rest of them, like was it Kevin Sorbo and John Voight and Kid Rock, and they're just already the worst people.
Yeah.
And they haven't had a career for decades.
Yeah.
And this is the best they can get.
Yeah.
And it's just
and
depressing.
They won't get paid. He's not going to pay them.
Oh no.
They just turn up as a celeb endorsement. Yeah. But it's kind of, what's interesting is that the thing about his VP appointee,
JD Vance,
JD Vance, who somebody posted up on in my feed, because in the 70s, 80s, possibly 70s, there was a DJ, Tommy Vance.
All right,
in the UK. So I read it, and lots of other people have said, "Did you just read this as DJ Vance?" And that's so when he came on. And the thing about JD Vance is that he had spotted what Trump is like before the 2016 election, and saying he is the worst kind of made up self-aggrandizing celeb. He's the product of the worst excesses of celebrity culture. No. He's like the 67th Kardashian. It's that kind of.
He said he was cultural heroin.
Yes, yeah. So yes, so you're kind of It's the thing that he gets you addicted to his celebrity, but eventually it will kill you.
One of the USA's most hated villainous douchey celebs, he called him.
Nice, a douchey celeb. Yes, exactly.
Actually, no. So I tell a lie. That's just a tweet that he liked about Trump.
Oh, okay.
He didn't say that.
Okay,
but he did say that. He did like the tweet.
It's the perfect description.
Yeah,
because and what happens at the RNC is filled with douchey celebs.
Yes,
it's that kind of nouveau riche. Well, he is the epitome of nouveau riche, isn't it? It's the kind of thing that you'd have pink marble in your hallway and a gold toilet. Oh,
yeah,
he's got those
every
as well.
picture
Yeah.
of Trump in his
Yes,
apartments is
exactly. And that's there was I had an uncle that had large ceramic, a bit like the ceramic dog in Friends that they ride on. It was a large ceramic leopard that I was entranced by, but he had two of them that stood next to each other, across the threshold of the staircase.
Yeah.
And I thought it was kind of the height of 70s luxury, but it was also really awful and kitsch. And that's when I think of Trump's douchey celeb, it's that kind of, this is really cool. They got pampas grass outside and they eat
It's the old you can't buy class, basically. You can buy stuff.
Yes.
But you can't buy class.
Exactly. You can buy stuff, but you can't buy class. Yes. It's a bit like Abigail's Party. The
Stock
not
Hard, is it?
Marie, that's the other one. Whatever her name is. Yeah, those two who are holding the party, and it's filled with the height of 70s luxury. Having prawn cocktails and martini in those little glasses that and champagne in the fruits that makes the bubbles go up your nose. And you think, it's the kind of people that ring you up and they refer to you as yourself. It's that. It's sort of. Yeah, well, I will take that on myself. And how was it today? I want to know what the best thing that we can do for yourself. Just adding extra letters doesn't make you sound more intelligent, and that's the basis of the entire RNC. And wheeling out your own family, the dynasty, in a kind of I wanted it to cut immediately to North Korea and kind of Kim Jong Un handing over from being handed. It's dynastic stuff, and it's all being set up.
Oh, it's very much. Yeah, that's why Eric gave the speeches, because they kind of are trying to position him in an heir kind of role.
It's exactly, because if God King Messiah King Donald I gets in, he will change the constitution so that the president becomes, like Putin.
Yeah,
and then
arguably
JD
Vance is kind of like a slightly squished Don Jr.
Yeah,
it's very similar.
But it's kind of very odd that he's changed his entire outlook. Having called him America's Hitler, he's changed his entire
it's weirdly politically expedient for him, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah,
it's strange how he was one of the original Never Trumpers.
Yeah,
he said he would not vote for Trump. He thought he was reprehensible, a moral disaster. He said he thought his there's definitely an element of Donald Trump's support that has its basis in racism, xenophobia. He said, and yet now he's all for Trump.
He's fucking vice president.
And the thing is, again, what I was saying about Trump being driven by different things is that Tucker Carlson and Don Jr. and the Heritage Foundation were kind of pro JD Vance because he's quite pro-life, quite anti-Ukraine, pro-Putin, that kind of stuff. But one of the things he isn't is different to Trump. So where by picking Pence, Trump got the evangelical voters who at the time, while they're now fucking fully on Trump, at the time they were not Trump voters, the evangelicals, because they thought, oh, well, this guy's on his third wife, he's not a good guy. But Pence was the road into that side of things. And in Indiana got that kind of Midwest vote and stuff like that. JD Vance doesn't really offer anything different to Trump. If anything, he's slightly more to the right on some issues, although he has removed some of those issues from his website. So he's not in a state that is kind of up for grabs. A swing state person. He's not someone who reaches a different demographic to who Trump already reaches, he's not really bringing anything to the ticket except someone who didn't used to like Trump who is now prepared to say he's great.
Yeah. And Trump loves that.
That's what Trump gets out of it, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's repeatedly said, "Oh, this guy didn't used to like me, but he likes me now," and that's all he gets out of picking Vance. It's not good for the ticket. It's good for him, his ego.
Yeah,
but that's also good for us in that sense because he hasn't made a good choice in terms of something that could actually help his chances.
Yeah,
and all Vance is pretty smart, but has not got a huge amount of charisma, or arguably has been kind of instructed to be fairly on the down low in terms of
charismatic.
Because he doesn't want to outshine Donald.
Yeah,
because that's one thing that would absolutely go against him. They would like break up over that if people decided they liked Vance more than Trump.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he has to be a bit unassuming, and kind of hide whatever lights he does have under a bushel a bit.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a weird choice that is
and
not good for
how
him.
Trump can't see. I mean, Trump is really smart.
No,
he isn't. he's too the whole narcissist. He's too busy looking at his reflection in the surface of the river to notice anyone playing political games beneath the surface. Ooh, nice metaphor. So Vance is kind of thinking, right, well, if I want to advance my career, make a lot of money, fundamentally, he doesn't want a career in politics. He just wants to be in the spotlight and get lots of money. So he did that by writing a book against Trump, and at the time at which everybody was turning to Trump. He did vote for him in the 2020 election, and now he's seeing, right, well, the best way to do that is to have a Damascene vision and change my ways and embrace Trump. And Trump is so besotted with that, so dazzled by that he can't see that those shenanigans are going on under his nose.
Yeah.
It's just, what? I mean, whereas Pence, thick as shit, couldn't do anything, and yet Trump hates him because he wouldn't overturn the election.
Yeah, and that's one advantage he does get with Vance is that Vance has already
said
of course
that
he absolutely would have done the thing that Pence refused to do.
Well, he says he would. Yeah.
Yeah.
What will happen is
I believe I don't see that he's got morals. So
no, but I think he would do something even more Machiavellian. He would say, "Oh yeah, come quick, we'll go into the White House. Come on," and then he'll come out of a room and say, "Well, he got overwhelmed by the whole deal and he slipped and banged his head. So I'm now the president." I think that's what Vance will ultimately. He sees a way in because he's not like we were. I was ranting about not being able to marry into the royal family. Vance has realised he's not a looker, so he's never going to, even marry Trump's granddaughter.
Well, he's already married.
He's never going to be a Trump.
He's married instantly to a woman whose parents are Indian, and she is already
yes, that's right.
Getting kind of racist attacks against her from Republicans.
Wow.
And is apparently surprised by this. So she hasn't been paying attention.
Huh? No. No.
To
either that or
Republicans
she doesn't
ever.
believe him. When he goes out to work, he said, "Yeah, I'm just off down to the left-wing progressive bookshop where I work." And he said, "What's all this stuff? Where's all this come from?"
But no, that's already going
odd,
bad.
Isn't it? It's a bit like Farage marrying a German woman and then shouting about the European Union and nobody noticing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, then at the RNC, Trump did his speech, which again was supposed to be unifying because he'd rewritten it. And
Same old shit.
yeah, it was a rally speech.
Yeah.
It was because it's all he can do. He can't cut out one of the sections about sharks and boats or things. They're all vitally important because they all get a good laugh.
There's a narrative, a strong narrative line that kind of
in the stream of consciousness bullshit.
Careful structure behind.
It's like a Stephen Wright stand-up set. The bits aren't connected to each other, but they all flow.
It's like Stuart Lee. Stuart Lee. Yeah. Trump even has like Stuart Lee does. Stuart Lee. Like Trump has little characters that kind of comment on what Trump is saying.
Absolutely.
Like Stuart Lee does.
Yeah.
And then Stuart Lee tells us that he has characters that are commenting about what he's doing.
So consequently, it was the longest convention speech that there has ever been.
Yeah.
It was 93 minutes.
All he had to say was, thanks.
Basically,
serve you well. Cheers.
And it obviously, he started out talking about how important unity is. And within 10 minutes, he was saying that if you take the 10 worst presidents and put them together, they still didn't do as much damage as Joe Biden did.
In that So I guess is that unity? Yeah. Is that units or tens? Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
we didn't learn anything new. There was no
nothing, nothing groundbreaking happened.
No.
There's a couple of bits I might use in fake news at some point. But there's so
guarantee I won't have listened to the whole 3 hours. Yeah.
Definitely. So the other thing, and finally some things we don't have time to talk about at this point, was the fact that of Trump's 4 criminal cases, one of which he's awaiting sentencing for, and that sentencing has been delayed due to the Supreme Court's immunity ruling.
Oh, yeah.
Although I don't think it's going to have much of an impact on the sentencing.
Right.
But one of the 4, which is stealing classified documents, taking them to his golf club in Florida,
hiding them,
refusing to give
bathroom.
them back, lying about having which ones he had, moving them around, taking them to Bedminster, showing them to random journalists, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The judge in Florida, Eileen Cannon, went...
Trump appointed.
Trump appointed judge at the very last minute before he left, appointed a new judge in the court closest to Mar-a-Lago, who had
that'd be handy,
almost no experience.
And we think he's not smart.
He's not super
street
smart,
isn't he?
She decided that actually it was unconstitutional appointing Jack Smith as special counsel, and therefore case goes away. So no more problem for Trump having taken all those documents and kept them. That's all fine. So
it's not unconstitutional for him to take all this stuff away.
No, that was probably an official act. So the theory is based in part on a Clarence Thomas thing that in the Supreme Court immunity case, the majority ruled that all the things we said about immunity and official acts and stuff like that, and Clarence Thomas wrote a consent which he said all of that stuff great. Also, on a barely related matter,
right? I'm
not really sure that Jack Smith's appointment was constitutional under the Appointments Clause. This was not something that had been raised by a lawyer at any point during that. No one had asked. He was like, maybe if anyone's listening in Florida, this is a kind of thing that if this were to be raised, I might feel quite sympathetic towards this argument. should it come up at some point in the future.
I can't think why it might.
No.
Yeah.
And so Eileen Cannon noticed that and thought, yeah,
received the
I've been waiting
Yeah.
for some reason to get rid of this case.
Yeah.
And she wrote a 93-page opinion dismissing the case without prejudice, so it can be refiled, essentially.
Right.
But her argument is that Jack Smith's appointment was unconstitutional because the appointments clause of the Constitution says that the president can appoint officers under the government.
Right.
And there is no kind of legal basis for a special counsel to be appointed by the Attorney General, as was done in this case. So therefore, because Jack Smith was not appointed legally, therefore the case he brought against Trump has to be dismissed. Because, it's fine. She's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, because there are actual laws about that specific thing, which talk about I think they talk specifically about heads of department appointing inferior officers. And I think it might even go as far as to talk about the Attorney General appointing inferior officers in the Department of Justice. And he is an employee of the Department of Justice. That's who pays him. He wasn't when he was appointed, and that's part of her argument. Is she's saying that the statutes refer to attorneys who are retained,
Right.
and to be retained, you have to already be employed by the U.S. government. He wasn't. He was working at The Hague, and therefore, because he hadn't been already a U.S. attorney, he hadn't been approved by the Senate, and but that's not what that means. By being appointed, he was retained. That's what that means. She's trying to say that the fact that that's past tense means he had to have already been doing the job before he was appointed to do the job. Because otherwise it's not allowed.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So this is bullshit.
And will it be brought back to? Of course, because that's the thing, isn't it? When you say, well, the person that has been appointed, who then went on to unearth countless thousands of classified documents kept illegally and then lied about in returning them by the former president. The fact that this guy found all of those things which are clearly in breach of constitutional law. Yeah. Doesn't render those that illegal. The case is thrown out. Procedurally, if she was right about this thing, dismissing the case would be the right way to go about it. Yeah. And but again, doing it without prejudice, meaning it can be brought again, would be the right way. She's not right about it, and in fact, she's so not right about it that 8 other federal judges in previous cases that have been asked this specific question have ruled the exact opposite way, including the Supreme Court. There isn't a precedent in her district, and the fact that those other federal cases happened in other districts means that they aren't binding precedent on her. Oh, man. So essentially, she says it's a case of first impression in her district, and therefore she can apart from the fact that it's how she wants. It's been... But it's just the kind of writhings of a snake that's been you're treading on its tail and it's writhing around to say, oh no, let me go, I'm fine, I won't bite you. No, it's the bloody hang on a minute, that's the snake argument about the snake, isn't it? Yeah. But it's that twisting and turning in order to let Trump off. Yes, that's absolutely. All it's down to, and then not appear to have let Trump off. Yeah, and one of the arguments she makes is that the Supreme Court case that dealt with special counsels
which was a Nixon case. She says that but basically it wasn't challenged in the appointment of the special counsel in Nixon's case wasn't a thing that was argued in front of the court because everyone at the time was like, well, yes, of course you can do that.
Yeah, fair
That's
enough.
fine.
Yeah, of course.
And so the fact that the Supreme Court were like, of course, this is fine. We don't have any, they didn't raise any issue with it.
Yeah.
Isn't an argument in favour of this being legal because it wasn't argued. But that's because no one thought there was any problem with it.
Yeah.
And so she called that dicta, which is when a judge says something in an opinion or in court that isn't actually part of the main opinion. It doesn't form precedent. That wasn't dicta in that case, but the thing she's relying on, which she quoted 3 times, Clarence Thomas's thing in his opinion, that very much is dicta because that wasn't argued in front of the court and does have nothing to do with the opinion in that case.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's claiming one thing is dicta and saying, well, so therefore we can't go and can't base anything on that. But the other thing that is definitely dicta, she's going, well, this proves my point.
Well, it's how the right works.
Yes. And in answer to what is next is that Jack Smith has already said that he's appealing it to the 11th Circuit, which the 11th Circuit have already overturned Cannon twice. That's right. There's a possibility that he might also request that she could be removed from the case.
Yes.
I don't know if he will.
That would be good. Yeah.
But that is a possibility. It's possible even if he doesn't request it, the 11th Circuit could overturn it and decide that she shouldn't have it back. It is, but it could just get sent back to her and say, no, don't be stupid.
You've got to bloody try it. Yeah.
He has said that he's appealing, but that's not the only thing that he could do. There are other options. First of all, a US attorney in Florida could bring the same charges. Because they wouldn't have the same issue. They're not special counsel. There's questions over exactly how much work product from the work that Smith has already done could be directly transferred over to that group of people. And that's it would be easier if it was just Smith doing it again still. He could bring the charges in DC because that's where the documents were stolen from. That was always an option, but the Florida venue was seen to be the right one at the time. If he did file charges in DC, then it might be seen as kind of judge shopping and saying, well, we didn't get the result we wanted in Florida, but we're going for another go. And also there are certain charges that he wouldn't be able to bring in DC because they happened in Florida. Things like all of the obstruction of justice that Trump did in trying to avoid those documents being found, the attempt to wipe the surveillance tapes and or moving the boxes, that kind of stuff. So it would be a narrower case, and that's another thing is he could just reduce the number of counts that he's filing. There could be a superseding indictment that charges him with other things. Either from a US attorney or from Smith's office. So there's a lot of different things that could happen. The first thing that's happening, though, is it will be appealed to the 11th Circuit. So we'll see that in the next few weeks probably, but there'll be nothing happening on the case for a while. It was already almost certainly delayed until after the election, and now it's definitely not going to move forward. But it's not out of the water by any means. It's definitely this is an insane ruling, and the 11th Circuit will almost certainly overrule it. It probably then will be appealed to the Supreme Court, maybe. And who knows what happens then, because the Supreme Court is full of crazy people.
For fuck's sake!
But only Clarence Thomas signed on to that concurrence.
And then we'll get to the election, and if Trump gets in, he will just pardon himself. Well, he will ask the Supreme Court whether he can pardon himself, and then he'll just pardon himself.
I don't think he'll ask.
No,
But,
he'll
yeah.
just do it. Yeah. Donald J. Trump pardoned. He'll have a little red rubber stamp.
Yeah.
Because he's going to need it a lot.
Yeah. Which is all the
let's
more
hope-
reason everyone needs to vote for Kamala.
Yeah. Yeah. Get a bloody move on, you Democrats. Oh, God. What a
So,
week.
It's been a week. It's been pretty intense. Yeah. And I've during this week been trying to write a talk that I'm giving on Thursday for Skeptics in the Pub
plug
Online
that. Yeah.
about 2,000 Mules. So if you fancy hearing me talk about that, it's sitp.online, Skeptics in the Pub Online, on Thursday the 25th at 7 p.m. UK time. That is the talk that I'm giving, and there'll be a Q&A and a kind of virtual pub after. And if you can't catch that, it'll be on. If you go to that website, it'll be on Twitch after,
Okay,
and probably on. They'll do a YouTube version of it like a week or so later, probably. So yeah, that's what I've been trying to get done while also constantly refreshing news pages.
Conspiring against you. Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, it was. Yeah. No, what a week. Oh dear. Well, and it's all going to settle down from now on and go swimmingly and be quiet.
I can't imagine anything else happening between now and November.
No, there's nothing left. There's nothing left.
Yeah, one of the other answers we got to my kind of request for questions on Patreon was Amber, who said you could probably just do emergency episodes from here until November. I think it's probably fair.
Oh my God, we're going to be so busy. Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Great. So normal service will resume next week, so join us for that.
Well, only in terms of
in the
what we're
absence
up to,
of other stuff happening.
And not in the world outside of this podcast. It's normal service resuming.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's been a while to get back to normal in that sense.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so we'll be back at it. And I think it's one that you've identified.
It will be a
Next
new
episode,
new
isn't it?
fallacy is the next one, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, which I've good that we're describing it as such rather than one we made up. Yeah. Yeah, that's one we've identified in the wild and in real life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and thanks for your yes, it's a long one, so thanks for your attentiveness. And yeah, let's hope we get some sleep and we're
please
back to
fucking
normal
calm down,
tomorrow.
news.
Yeah. Yes. For God's sake, America. Yeah. Take a break. Chill out. Get some rest.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right then.
Bye.
See you then. Bye.